right. So what I got is a few clips from. I actually want to recommend. I don't know if it is for you, but for the audience, there's a Louis C.K. appeared on Shane Gillis's podcast, and they did. I think it was 4 episodes where they go from the first president of the United States to the last president of the United States, just one by one. And there's like historical content there, but the approach is CK says it a bunch of times in the conversations. Like, I don't know anything about whether this was a good president or a bad president, the policy and whatnot. I'm interested in the guys, just the characters. Like, Nixon is a dramatic figure that he's drawn to for, and then he explains, the reasons. So I have a few clips that are from the end of that conversations. It's not that kind of thing as I just described because it's nowadays and they're talking about Trump. But CK says a bunch of things that I want you to react to. So let me play this and tell me if you hear the audio well.
I think a huge mistake that the Democrats made was to shit on the people who loved him. That's a dumb fucking...
Yeah, they can't stop doing it.
Basket of deplorables.
They can't stop doing it.
It's just the stupidest thing you can do. The thing that progressives do that I've never seen in all of these years we've talked about, never seen a political movement do, is assign people to the other side.
Yeah.
What Clinton did, what anybody running for president, Nixon did it. You could see examples of all of them when they talked, like, especially when they started doing town halls, which was a great addition to
Yeah.
Somebody would stand up and say, I don't want to vote for you because I'm a Democrat and because I think you're, whatever. And they go, okay, tell me, what does that mean to you being a Democrat?
Yeah.
Well, the economy is very important to me and healthcare, and I want people to be taken care of when they're older, sick. And he goes, I'm afraid to tell you, but you're a Republican. That's what people do is like, come here. I've got the same, I'm like you, you're like me more than you understand. Now, and they hedge it. They go like, now I don't agree with my opponent's bill for healthcare, but I have the same concern as you do about healthcare. I have the same values you do. We're like, you should vote for me. But what progressives do is you actually say to them, I'm a progressive.
Yeah.
And they go, really? Prove it. Well, I'm for gay marriage. What do you mean gay? What do you mean marriage?
Yeah.
You are a Trump. They tell other people that they belong to Trump. They give him, they push people away.
They pushed everyone to him.
Because the goal is not actually to win and to change the country, which is a ugly, difficult, to really change the country is a gray, difficult, boring, bureaucratic, unsatisfying, slow business. And people want to be able to make it happen like this. And they're not trying to make something happen. They're just trying to feel, they're trying to show what they think and perform what they are and just get it. And they're addicted. It's a sickness. I feel sorry for them. I don't hate people like this. It's just that they're sick. They can't stop this thing. If this doesn't bark, they start feeling sick inside. So if it's not barking, they bark at it so that it'll bark back. And that's on both sides.
Yeah.
That's everybody on the Trump side. That's everybody on the progressive side.
Yeah.
It's sick. But I feel I'm skipping over Trump because I think the whole country has been in a fevered nightmare for all the time he was president. And he was the perfect president for the time we were living.
Yeah.
He was, all the people that hate Trump that really hate him are exactly like him. And they picked him. CNN and MSNBC refused to talk about any other Republicans.
Oh, man, that was kind of interesting. I think I agree with the brother. A lot of it. I think this point about how the Trump haters characterize the people who support Trump as beyond the pale, as being Neanderthals. They're ignorant, they're racist, they hate, they're filled with hate. And to dismiss them, which puts them beyond the necessity of persuasion. I thought that was also an interesting point. There's something too easy about the dismissal posture. It relieves you of the responsibility of actually having to make an argument to the person. You just presume that what they are, say it's the border, they're racist. They don't want brown people, So I thought that was interesting. What was that last point he was making? They're exactly like Trump. I mean, can we replay that?
I feel sorry for them. I don't hate people like this. It's just that they're sick. They can't stop this thing. If this doesn't bark, they start feeling sick inside. So if it's not barking, they bark at it, so it'll bark back. And that's on both sides.
Yeah.
That's everybody on the Trump side. That's everybody on the progressive side.
Yeah.
It's sick, but I feel I'm skipping over Trump because I think the whole country has been in a fevered nightmare.
So that's about where our argument has gotten to, and how much of this kind of fueling this psychological thing, and so and all of the partisans are in a way caught up in the same dynamic. I don't know.
The point there that resonated with me is the thing about he says, you actually tell a progressive, I'm a progressive, and they go, prove it.
Gay marriage, yeah. What do you mean gay? What do you mean marriage?
Like, you're not trying to win over somebody who is not on your side yet. You actually might push somebody who says they're on your side away because you're fighting for this purity of like who's
the
more
purity.
Or yeah.
There was a guy called Irving Howe. He's an American intellectual, New York, Jewish literary. Published Dissent magazine for many years back in the 60s, Irving Howe, and he has a memoir called A Margin of Hope, A Margin of Hope, where he just describes coming up as a thinking person in New York City in the 1930s and 1940s, and they were all communist of one stripe or another. Every right-thinking person, was a Marxist, but there were Trotskyites and there were Leninist and, Stalinist, and, there were all these different stripes of these different sects. He described, one of the chapters is called Life Within a Sect. Mm-hmm. And it's all about purity. It's all about, you're not, you don't have the appropriate interpretation of some obscure, where at the end of the day you would say, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? What side of that would I take? But if you're not on the right side of it, you're not pure enough, and you have to be purged, even to the point of having to be, violently, set upon. I mean, so that's a thing. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm feeling this. I feel like I said everything I wanted to say about Trump in my response to that question with McWhorter during the Q&A.
Which, to summarize real quickly.
I think the demonization of Trump is an end run undertaken by the self-righteous left. An end run or avoidance of the necessity of having to grapple with the fact that a lot of people responded to Trump because they were disaffected from the elites, because they are tired of having a finger wagged in their face. Because he really had, with respect to whatever the issue might have been, America's role in the world, or the countercultural reaction against some of the shifting that's been going on since the 1960s around gender and identity and sex and race and whatnot, or the economic transformation where there really have been a large displaced, kind of lower middle, the uneducated, the people who are in the towns that are fading away, the people who are being hurt by the globalization and by China or whatnot, the religious, the abortion thing, things like that. And so I'm thinking that these are fights that need to be had, but that people are afraid to have to fight on the merits. And then they want to take the tribune, the guy who's the embodiment, who has strategically put himself in the position of being the spokesman for this disaffected 40% of the electorate, and they make them into this to these demons. They're enemies of the state. They're hate-filled racists, and so I'm much more interested in the people who are in support of Trump than I am in Trump himself, and I think the projection of all of this onto Trump the criminal, Trump the barbarian, Trump the idiot, Trump the racist, Trump the anti-democrat is cheap politics. It's a very it's a personalization of something, but real politics is not about personality. Trump is not Hitler. It's not as if he's a messianic figure who's got all of the powers of whatever. But anyway, I go on too long, and I may be wrong about that. Maybe he is Hitler. I don't know. I think it's too easy to make him into Hitler, and then you don't have to deal with the fact that a lot of people are attracted to what it is that he has to say.
Let me play you another one. I don't remember all the details of these clips, but I think what you're saying now relates to a bunch of things that CK is going to say in a couple of these other clips.
Trump's magic was an absolute perfect narcissism, like a crystal fucking diamond, just perfect, no flaws narcissism. And at an age where that was the country, he came at a time where people were obsessed with personal attention, with feelings, and they just were in denial about what's going to happen next.
Again, he was a result.
Yes.
He was a result of social media. He was a result of how America is acting. He was also a result of the left being complete fucking dickheads. And it was more fun to be like, I want to watch Trump win and watch these fucking people that openly hate me. I want to watch them cry when Hillary loses.
I felt in agony every minute that he was president, and I hated it. But I understand that. I understand why people dug him. There's no conversation going on anymore. Nobody's really defending liberal politics, and there isn't a real conservative running. It's just a shit show and a piece of shit won. I think the next thing that would restore the country is a fucking normal conservative, Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Just a normal fucking dude. It can't be these guys who are just pushing whatever button that day. I'm going to go against the liberals on this because that's what they're mad about today. It's got to be somebody who goes back to just regular. And I don't want a conservative president, but I believe I live in a democracy and that the president should only sometimes reflect my values, because I'm a part of the country. I'm not the whole country.
Yeah.
So if I lived in a country where I love the president my whole lifetime, that would be fucked up because I only agree with about 38% of the people in the country.
Yeah.
What is the test of what a president should be? To me, what he should be is a representative of the people's will. Remember this thing that I said, he is a president. He presides. Like when they talk about, like real intellectuals talk about it and real press guys, they say you are president. They don't say you're the president. It's you're presiding. Like I said, it's a simple job. Trump always talks about leader. When you're a leader, you're not a leader. You're not a ruler. You are presiding over a process. You're presiding over a process of equals deciding things together. You're supposed to be just one of the people who was chosen to step up and run shit for a while, being told by this group of all we also voted for what to do. That's what the legislators, and then these 9 people who are looking after, making sure that it's supposed to result in the right thing and keeping the tiller in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's a humble position. That's why I don't think it belongs to a guy like him.
No, I mean, at the beginning there, he was saying some stuff that I thought was interesting. I'm not as interested in Louis C.K.'s philosophy of leadership or whatever. I think he crystallized this kind of self-absorption or whatever that he's talking about. That is the Trump distillation of the mood of the country. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm more interested in the fact that you had Obama for 8 years and then you get Trump. You have the first woman credible candidate for president and then you get Trump. And I'm interested in the fact that whatever we think about Trump is filtered through this massive effort to discredit him. I mean, from the very day of his election, he's a traitor, he's a Russian, he's a dupe of Putin, he's illegitimate, and so on. And the twice impeached, kind of protracted investigation and whatnot. Meanwhile, he appoints 3 justices to the United States Supreme Court, which completely transforms the legal order for a half of a lifetime. And he remains, notwithstanding all of this, an enormously powerful force within American politics and within the Republican Party. I don't know. I think that demands more of a deeply historically informed kind of reading than the one that was just offered there. So I'm not yet prepared to pronounce on the meaning of Trump. I think that's a hard one and probably requires some retrospect. I think we're going to not know fully what the meaning. It remains to be seen. In my view, I want to say something else. The summer of 2020, the George Floyd riots. That was a powerful play into Trump's strength. Mm-hmm. I think it should not be underestimated. The juxtaposition of the January 6th riot at the Capitol and how that's being processed to the summer of 2020 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and in Minneapolis, and in Seattle, and in Portland, and Chicago Magnificent Mile, Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles, the Black Lives Matter riots, that no credible news organization would even use that phrase. Only a right-wing organization would use that phrase. But the insurrection that tried to take our democracy away, this is what they call January 6th.
Isn't the huge difference there, like, whether you destroy some store somewhere or you storm the Capitol?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. I'm just saying that I think there's a large silent minority. I don't think it's a majority, but I think it's a substantial group of people who, first of all, don't think that what happened on January 6th, as disturbing as it was, and of course it was really an extraordinary, profoundly disturbing event, came anywhere close to overturning the government of the United States of America. It was not a coup. It was not a coup. Anyway, I think I should stop because I'm not prepared to fully describe what I think here, and it's such a sensitive matter, so I'm going to stop.
Well, let me ask you, unrelated to all of this question, but it's just like that storming of the Capitol. I remember looking at the pictures when it was happening, and to me, a big part of this, not just the storm of the Capitol, but just the last however many 8 years or something, things are getting weirder and weirder. And the storming of the Capitol, to me, the iconic picture from that was that QAnon Viking. Do you know the guy I'm talking about in the helmet?
Yeah, I remember that.
Does that matter to you? Is that a meaningful part of the situation, that there's just weird shit happening alongside of the big political changes? It's just bizarre, some of it. Like, Trump is asked, leading up to the presidential election, he was asked, do you seriously think that Democrats are satanic pedophiles or something like that? He says, I don't like pedophiles, do you? Like, the fact that these kinds of strains have entered the mainstream conversation, is that a meaningful thing to you, or to you is it just a weird thing, but we shouldn't focus on that?
It's a weird thing. It's not meaningful, or it hasn't been. But as you pointed out, it strikes me as something interesting, and maybe there are many examples of it. So, I mean, QAnon is pretty weird. I agree. I agree that QAnon is pretty weird. Scientology is pretty weird too, if you ask me.
That's true, but Scientology does not have a representation in the Congress, I don't think.
Right. It does not. It does not.
Let me play another one for you. I think
To-
this should be shorter.
To me,
Okay,
the
let's
thing
go.
about Trump is that he had no respect for democratic process. To me, the thing on the left is they have no respect for liberty. This America is about democracy and liberty. Okay, it's about that we choose amongst ourselves and that there's a working, fair democracy. And it's about you can say what you want, you can believe what you want, you can be who you want, you can have the identity you want, you can be anything you want. The great American ideal is leave people the fuck alone. That's the one they forget. It's not about like say this, say that. It's about leave folks alone. Let people do what they want. And the left forgot that. They don't give a fuck about freedom of speech anymore. They don't get how stupid it is to shut people up and how quickly that's going to come around and kick you in the ass. Same thing with Trump. If you just wield authority like this, say fuck democracy, no one's going to have your back.
Yeah.
No one's going to be there to make sure you're doing the right thing like the press is supposed to do and doesn't do anymore. So that's, to me, the two sides have fucked up those two principles.
And that the problem is both those sides are correct to point the finger at the other side.
Yes, that's
and
why
be
it's
like, this is why we're fucked up. That's why we're fucked up.
That's
and they
why
just
it
won't
becomes,
stop.
That's why it becomes a looking
Yeah.
glass, because they don't understand each other. And yes, they are right about each other.
Yeah, they're right.
They're right about each other. The left is right about Trump. Trump's right about the left, and all the people that are left, and so it's a mess.
Okay. I agree that Louis C.K. would be quick to point out that you're not free to say whatever you want, and the thought police will come and get you. Trump doesn't respect democracy. I don't know. I know that's what I'm supposed to say. I'm supposed to get on that bandwagon.
We don't believe that.
No, I mean, I think everybody's trying to win. That's is what I think. I mean, I think the gerrymandering of congressional districts, the seeping of money from billionaires and interested parties into the influence of elections, the bias of the press that distorts or suppresses information on behalf of this or that cause, the corruption of institutions, including institutions of law enforcement, like the FBI. I'm not supposed to say that on behalf of political objective. I'm cynical. I mean, the Democrats complain that the Republicans are trying to make it hard to vote. They act as if every regulation that you could possibly have about voting is an attack on democracy. They're just partisans. They just want the rules to be rules favorable to the outcomes in the election that they will get. This idea of this purity of democracy, this thing, and the left are supposed to be protective of it, and the right are the ones who are attacking it. The deplorables are the threat to democracy. No, I'm not persuaded of that.
It sounds like you're saying nobody really has the respect for democracy. It's just democracy is hopefully what happens when many of these actors try to win and none maintains a monopoly for too long.
Yeah, that is what I think. That's exactly what I think. The resolution of the conflicting forces, each of which attempts to undermine or corrupt democracy on behalf of their own goals, is what we get, and you have to hope that's more or less fair. You have to hope that the conflict between them is enough to keep each of them from being too dishonest somehow, something like that. But the masses, the demos, the common man, the working person, the poor, that's supposed to be what the left are advocating on behalf of. And I think that might be why some people just assume that anything that gets more Democrats elected is going to be somehow more honestly democratic. But no, I'm not persuaded of that.
Okay, fair enough. Last clip, and I'll let you go.
But the thing I count on is just human spirit, human nature, which is that we like each other. I think, and we like to laugh at each other, and and everybody knows that they're full of shit. Everybody knows. It's the thing that's sad about the phone to me, and this is the last thing I'm going to say because I'm losing my mind. You get on a subway train or on a bus or on a plane, and you look at another person, and there's that weird eye contact thing. You're like, ugh. And you look at a person, and you kind of hate. We're reptilian. Like I don't fuck that guy.
Yeah,
he's competition or whatever it is. But you look at a person and you go, he ain't that bad. And then you see him look at you and you see yourself through his eyes and you think, I ain't that great. These are these two very important parts. He ain't that bad. I ain't that great. And you get that from eye contact and personal contact and through forced, you just around people that you don't love, around people that that aren't like you. That's why I've always loved New York City, because I always used to feel like that. But with this thing, you don't have to ever have that moment. You're just looking into this, and it keeps this magical algorithm keeps telling you more and more of what you want to feel. It doesn't give you any. It keeps you from any resistance. You know, kids get out of college and they just feel like idiots because they go in the world and nobody cares what they think. But they start to get stronger every day they meet with resistance, and also they start to hear shit they don't believe in and believe some of it. You know what I mean? And their world expands. But this thing takes you into a smaller world every day, smaller and smaller, further away from other people. And everybody, instead of learning and growing, everybody's becoming retarded. That's where Trump came from, and I don't know what's next.
I think there's a connection here to the whole debate about I don't want to bring up, but I'm gonna name Amy Wax. But like this is what I hear in the conversation about the university, and a speaker who's conservative, it will not enter a liberal university, and so the students, for the time that they're in the college, in the university, they're gonna hear what they expect to hear from a college that they chose, because it is a liberal institution, and they're not going to be facing this resistance that he's talking about.
Well, yeah, I think he has a point. He's not that bad. I'm not that great. I kind of like that. That was actually kind of sweet. Philosophy of everyday life. Humility and how to foster good relations between people and stuff. And yeah, silos and, just talking to the people that I can testify that that's kind of happening to me. I mean, since the COVID pandemic and my kind of isolation at home, working from my studio, I very seldom see people. I only interact with the people that I choose to connect to. I'm speaking. There's a lot that's going out. I broadcast. I have a platform. I'm interviewing. I'm always talking. There's a lot that's going out, but I'm not really connecting with people face to face, especially people who disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to share space with them. And this isolation has even crept into very intimate relationships. For example, my marriage. My wife and I agree not to talk about things that we know we disagree so sharply about that it's impossible to discuss them without getting into a fight. But that means we don't talk about these things. Or my son Glenn, who has very different views on cultural politics, and he's gay. And, if I talk about transgender issues or whatnot, we'll explode and be shouting at each other. So we never discuss them anymore, even though, we had this thing at the newsletter where we had Macy Branch and Elizabeth Hummel, two correspondents. Macy is a transgender woman, and Elizabeth is a cisgender woman who's concerned about early gender reassignment intervention for children. And they actually exchanged letters, and I've never discussed it with my son.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even mentioned it, and I hope that he hasn't followed the newsletter closely enough to see it, because if it came up, we would fight. So that's a kind of isolation, But he says that's where Trump came from. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or false. I have no way of knowing if that. I don't see it, but whatever.
Yeah, I see his point. I don't want to argue it. So he is like this last clip I played. He starts with, here's where hope comes from me, that just human nature, just like when you do have eye contact, you have this. Do you have like, what is your feeling about whether where hope comes from, or if there's no hope, what is the source of despair? What are your thoughts on how it's gonna evolve?
I don't. I vacillate. I get asked this question all the time. Am I optimistic? Am I hopeful? And I've given both answers. I've given, yeah, I think we've reached peak woke, and the pendulum will swing the other way in the debate here in the United States. And then I say sometimes these people are idiots, and they're never gonna. So let me personalize it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's hope. That's my answer. I think there's hope because love conquers all. That's my answer. That's consistent with the eye contact observation. That's not quite love, but it's humanity. It's that we recognize each other as human beings. And if we can stay on that plane of our common humanity, we won't kill each other. But I'm also thinking about my marriage, because that was an example. She thinks this, I think that. If we say it out loud, we'll fight. Who wants to be fighting all the time? No one. But doesn't the value of what we have together in marriage exceed, is more important than who's right and who's wrong about this thing that we disagree about? So we kind of rise above it. We kind of transcend it. We put the disagreement in its place. Mm-hmm. It's because we love each other. So something like that. I mean, I think that's a little romantic, but that's what I think.
That's a good romantic note to end on.
Okay.